الحمد لله نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد قال الله تعالى في القرآن الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. Respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The 24th of September in the South African calendar is known as Heritage Day. The first definition that one comes across in the dictionary is that heritage is a piece of property that is to be inherited. This definition is extended, and the official South African government definition of heritage in Heritage Day includes all that the people inherit, such as culture, history, wildlife, monuments, artwork, literature, music, folklore, languages, culinary traditions, etc. It was declared a public holiday in 1996 with the hope that it would help South Africans use their rich and varied cultural heritage to build a new nation. There are different types of heritage that people refer to, like natural heritage, cultural heritage, and even world heritage. The definition given earlier seems to fit in with the definition of cultural heritage. Cultural heritage consists of both tangible and intangible aspects. The tangible aspects can be seen in the built environment, in buildings, towns, and ruins of places. It can be artifacts like books or certain objects, and it can even refer to places in the natural landscape that has meaning or connection for people. The intangible aspects include oral history and values and can be seen through types of clothing, forms of shelter, religious ceremonies, and even through food. South Africans have begun calling this public holiday Braai Day, as the braai is seen as a common type of food and a unifying force in a divided country. With the interesting history that South Africa has of colonization, apartheid, and eventual freedom from the oppression, together with the different races, religions, and cultures, there are various heritage aspects that each individual could commemorate. As Muslims, I would like to spend some time looking back at how Islam was brought to South Africa, how it spread, and how the Muslim communities evolved in this country. There is a book available online titled History of Muslims in South Africa, a Chronology, by Ibrahim Muhammad Mahida, which gives quite a detailed account from the 1600s up to about 1990. The chronological account begins in 1652, where it was believed that the few Malays were brought to Cape Town by the Dutch from Indonesia. Indonesia was a colony of the Dutch, and the Dutch East India Company used Cape Town as an important stop in their journeys. These early Muslims were either political prisoners exiled by the Dutch occupiers or brought in to do labor on the request by Jan van Riebeeck. In 1694, perhaps the most famous of the political prisoners arrived. Sheikh Yusuf of Makassar fought against the Dutch colonists in Indonesia. He was persuaded to surrender but was then banished, and because he was seen as an influential figure, he was exiled to Cape Town along with his family members, friends, and some followers. This resulted in the first cohesive Muslim community being established in Zandvliet, despite the attempts to keep them isolated. Sheikh Yusuf passed away in 1699 and a tomb for him was erected, which is still in existence today. More convicts were sent to the Cape as cheap labor, many of whom returned to Indonesia once their sentences were complete. Those who chose to remain in Cape Town became known as the Vrye Zwarten, or the Free Black Community, and flourished despite restrictions laid upon them by the Dutch. The mid to late 1700s saw the spread of Islam as many slaves were seen gathering at homes of the Vryheidswarden to read the Quran. In 1780, another famous personality in the history of Muslims in South Africa arrived as a prisoner, and that is Imam Abdullah bin Qadi Abdul Salam, also known as Tuan Guru. Tuan Guru was imprisoned on Robben Island for about 13 years, during which time he wrote the Quran from memory as well as other books of Islam. Soon after his release from prison, Tuan Guru established the first madrasa in this country. In 1794, he established the first mosque known as Oval Masjid in Dorp Street in Cape Town. It is said that the land for this mosque was given by a Muslim woman, Sarki van der Kaap. Tuan Guru passed away in 1807, at which time the madrasa that he established had close to 500 scholars. In 1856, an Islamic book called Al-Qawl al-Mateen by Sheikh Ahmad al-Ishmuni was published in Cape Town. This book is described as being the oldest book in Afrikaans. It is an Arabic Afrikaans book, Afrikaans written in Arabic script with Afrikaans sounds. In 1860, the first batch of indentured laborers arrived from India to Durban. A small amount of these laborers were Muslim, and only 9 remained in Durban after completing their service, one of which is said to be Sheikh Alif Wala Ahmed, also known as Bacha Pir. In 1904, Cape Town had a Muslim councillor, Dr. Abdullah Abdul Rahman. Dr. Abdul Rahman got his medical degree in Scotland before gaining a seat on the council. He also played an important role in the education and community welfare and was a key figure in the African political organization. Closer to home, 1906 saw the establishment of the PMC, Pretoria Muslim Congregation, or Pretoria Mohammedan Congregation, as it was known then, who were responsible for the erection of the Queen Street Mosque in the Pretoria CBD. In 1920, the first Muslim school was established in Simonstown, after Muslim students were told that they can no longer be accommodated in the school that they used to attend. In 1956, the Heilige Quran, the first Afrikaans translation of the Quran, was published in Cape Town. In 1957, the Islamic Propagation Center was formed to focus on the spread of Islam, and Ahmed Didat took charge in training the youth and delivering public lectures. In 1981, the first Zulu translation of the Quran was published in Natal. In 1984, Muslim organizations rejected the proposal of a tricameral parliament. Participation in the parliament, where Indians and coloureds were offered token parliamentary roles while the blacks were excluded, would amount to being a part of the oppression, since it entrenched racial division. That was just a brief overview of the history of Muslims in South Africa. If you look closely at the timeline, we notice that the Muslims of the 1900s inherited many qualities that their predecessors had, and so have we today. The rejection of the tricameral parliament is similar to the fight against the colonialists by Sheikh Yusuf. The spread of Islam in Dawah work like that of Ahmed Didat is similar to the spread of Islam in the late 1700s by the Vryheidswarden. The establishment of masajid, school and madrasa that we see all over the country today is a continuation of the visions of Tuan Guru. These qualities were in the early Muslims in South Africa and are here today, and inshallah this heritage will be there for generations after us. I'd like to now focus a bit on cultural and natural heritage. Cultural heritage refers to monuments, groups of buildings and sites with historical, aesthetic, archaeological, scientific, ethnological or anthropological value. Natural heritage refers to outstanding physical, biological, geological formations, habitats of threatened species of animals, and plants in areas with scientific conservation or aesthetic value. Our cultural and natural heritage is important in establishing our identity and also serves as points of reference and thus needs to be protected. There are therefore heritage resources agencies that have been established to protect our heritage on national and provincial levels in South Africa. Globally as well, we see that the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organizations, also known as UNESCO, is tasked with the protection and preservation of World Heritage Sites. Wars, natural disasters, pollution, poaching, uncontrolled urbanization, and unchecked tourist development can be dangerous to cultural or natural heritage sites. I'd like to go through some examples of World Heritage Sites that were or still are in danger of being destroyed. The pyramids of Giza in Egypt are one of the most well-known built structures in the world. In 1995, these pyramids were under threat by a highway project near Cairo, which could have seriously damaged the value of this archaeological site. After negotiations with the government, other solutions were found. So why is this important to us here in South Africa or to Muslims? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Ghafir, Surah 40, verse 82, Do they not travel through the earth and see what was the end of those before them? They were more numerous than these and superior in strength, and in the traces they have left in the land. Yet all they accomplished was of no profit to them. We are encouraged by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to look at the previous generations, at the ruins that they left behind, so that we may learn lessons from them. If these archaeological sites were to be destroyed, they will lose their value and become mere tales whose truth cannot be verified and eventually be forgotten, and the lessons that they were meant to teach us lost forever. The second example we can look at is the Galapagos Islands in Ecuador. These islands are considered as one of the world's foremost destinations for wildlife viewing. They contain a diversity of plant and animal species, many of which are found nowhere else on Earth. These islands are on the list of World Heritage in danger since 2007. They are being threatened by tourism, immigration, invasive species, overfishing, and water pollution. Once again, how does this affect us? In Surah Al-Imran, Surah number 3, verses 190 to 199, we read, Behold, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the alternation of night and day, there are indeed signs for men of understanding. Men who celebrate the praises of Allah, standing, sitting, and lying down on their sides, and contemplate the wonders of creation in the heavens and the earth, with the thought, Our Lord, not for nothing have you created all this. Glory to you. Give us salvation from the penalty of the fire. The unique animal species found on this island was important in many scientific studies and in the development of scientific theories that enable us to better understand the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Furthermore, the destruction of habitats can lead to the extinction of some species of plant and animal life, which may in turn disrupt the natural balance of the earth, and as a result, we humans will suffer the consequences. Surah Rum, Surah 30, verse 41 warns us, Mischief has appeared on land and sea because of the meat that the hands of men have earned, that Allah may give them a taste of some of their deeds, in order that they may turn back from evil. The third example that I would like to look at are the rice terraces of Cordilleras in the Philippines. This heritage landscape is threatened due to irrigation development as well as neglect due to the exodus of the inhabitants. As a result, the transfer of knowledge and skills of traditional rice farming and the maintenance of rice terraces are gradually being lost. The reason I chose this example is that it mentions the importance of the transfer of knowledge and skills from one generation to the next. Due to the technological and electronic world that we live in today, certain values and skills seem to be lost. For example, patience. Everything is expected to happen instantly and be available when we want, even the ripening of a fruit on a tree. Heritage is our legacy from the past, what we live with today and what we pass on to future generations. One way of ensuring that the past and present will be passed on into the future is if certain steps are taken. An example is the heritage cycle. By understanding what the heritage is, people will value it. By valuing it, people will want to care for it. Caring for it will allow people to enjoy it. And by people enjoying it, they will be eager to understand it. Coming back to Heritage Day on 24th September in South Africa and its origins. This day was observed in the past by the Zulus as Shaka Day in commemoration of King Shaka Zulu. To commemorate means to remind people about certain people or events of the past and to honor or show respect to them. This is not something foreign to Islam. Just a few days back, many Muslims commemorated the events of Karbala and of Ashura. In fact, the Quran urges us many times to commemorate the prophets of Allah. Surah 38 verses 45 to 47 read, and commemorate our servants Ibrahim, Ishaq and Yaqub, possessors of power and vision. Verily we did choose them for a special purpose, proclaiming the message of the year after. They were in our sight truly of the company of the elect and the good. We commemorate them to learn how they lived, about the sacrifices that they made, about the trials they faced and how they overcame them, so that we may learn from their lives and that in their stories we may find solace, as Muhammad ﷺ did, that Allah will never forsake the righteous. Heritage Day in South Africa is meant for South Africans to celebrate our culture and diversity in beliefs and tradition. Understanding the various cultures and differences that we have would result in respect for the differences and help build the nation. I conclude with verse 13 from Surah Hujurat, which concurs with this notion. O mankind, we created you from a single pair of a male and a female, and made you into nations and tribes that you may know each other, not that you may despise each other. Verily the most honored of you in the sight of Allah is he who is the most righteous of you. And Allah has full knowledge and is well acquainted with all things. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.